The Heart of the Hills by John Fox Jr. Chapter 4. On they trudged, the boy plodding sturdily ahead, the little girl slipping mountain fashion behind. Not once did she come abreast with him, and not one word did either say, but the mind and the heart of both were busy. All the way, the frown overcasting the boy's face stayed like a shadow, for he had left trouble at home. He had met trouble, and to trouble he was going back. The old was definite enough, and he knew how to handle it, but the new bothered him sorely. That stranger boy was a fighter, and Jason's honest soul told him that if interference had not come, he would have been whooped, and his pride was still smarting with every step. The new boy had not tried to bite or gouge or to hit him when he was on top. Facts that puzzled the mountain boy. He hadn't whimpered and he didn't blab, not even the insult Jason had hurled with eye and tongue at his girl-clad legs. He had said that he didn't know what they were fighting about, and just why they were, Jason himself couldn't quite make out now. But he knew that even now, in spite of the handshake and truce, he would at the snap of a finger go at the stranger again. And little Mavis knew now that it was not fear that made the stranger girl scream, and she too was puzzled. She even felt that the scorn in Marjorie's face was not personal, but she had shrunk from it as from the sudden lash of a whip. The stranger girl too had not blabbed, but had even seemed to smile her forgiveness when Mavis turned, with no goodbye to follow Jason. Hand in hand, the two little mountaineers had crossed the threshold of a new world that day. Together they were going back into their own, but the clutch of the new was tight on both, and while neither could have explained, there was the same thought in each mind, the same nameless dissatisfaction in each heart, and both were in the throes of the same new birth. The sun was sinking when they started up the spur, and unconsciously Jason hurried his step, and the girl followed hard. The twin spirals of smoke were visible now, and where the path forked, the boy stopped and turned, jerking his thumb toward her cabin and his. "If anything happens," he paused, and the girl nodded her understanding. "You and me are going to stay here in the mountains and get married." "Yes, Jacy," she said. His tone was matter-of-fact, and so was hers, nor did she show any surprise at the suddenness of what he said, and Jason, not looking at her, failed to see a faint flush come to her cheek. He turned to go, but she stood still, looking down into the gloomy, darkening ravine below her. A bear's tracks had been found in that ravine only the day before. "Are you afeard?" he asked tolerantly, and she nodded mutely. "I'll take you down," he said with sudden gentleness. The tall mountaineer was standing on the porch of the cabin, and with assurance and dignity, Jason strode ahead with a protecting air to the gate. "Why are you two been?" he called sharply. "I went fishing," said the boy unperturbed, "and took Mavis with me." "You are getting a little too pert, boy. I don't want that gal running around in the woods all day." Jason met his angry eyes with a new spirit. "I reckon you hain't been here long." The shot went home, and the mountaineer glared helpless for an answer. "Come on in here and get supper," he called harshly to the girl, and as the boy went back up the spur, he could hear the scolding going on below, with no answer from Mavis, and he made up his mind to put an end to that someday himself. He knew what was waiting for him on the other side of the spur, and when he reached the top, he sat down for a moment on a long, fallen, moss-grown log. Above him beetled the top of his world. His great blue, misty hills washed their turbulent waves to the yellow shore of the dropping sun. Those waves of forest primeval were his, and the green spray of them was tossed into cloudland to to catch the blessed rain. In every little fold of them, drops were trickling down now to water the earth and give back the sea its own. The dreamy-eyed man of science had told him that, and it was unchanged, all unchanged, since wild beasts were the only tenants, since wild Indians slipped through the wilderness aisles, since the half-wild white man, hot on the chase, planted his feet in the footsteps of both and inexorably pushed them on. The boy's first Kentucky ancestor had been one of those who'd stopped in the hills. His rifle had fed him and his family, his axe had put a roof over their heads, and the loom and spinning wheel had clothed their bodies. Day by day they'd fought back the wilderness, had husbanded the soil, and as far as his eagle eye could reach, that first Hon had claimed mountain, river, and tree for his own. And there was none to dispute the claim for the passing of half a century. Now those who had passed on were coming back. The first trespasser long ago with a yellow document that he called a blanket patent, and which was all but the bringer's funeral shroud. For the old hunter started at once for his gun, and the stranger with his patent took to flight. Years later, a band of young men with chain and compass had appeared in the hills and disappeared as suddenly, and later still another band running a line for a railroad up the river found old Jason at the foot of a certain oak with his rifle in the hollow of his arm and making a dead line which none dared to cross. And later still, when he understood, the old man let them pass, but so far nobody had surveyed his land, and now instead of trying to take, they were trying to purchase. From all points of the compass, the foreigners were coming now. The rock pecker's prophecy was falling true, and at that moment the boy's hot words were having an effect on every soul who had heard them. Old Jason's suspicions were alive again. He was short of speech when his nephew, Arch Hahn, brought up the sale of his lands, and Arch warned the colonel to drop the subject for the night. The colonel's mind had gone back to a beautiful woodland at home that he thought of clearing off for tobacco. He would put that desecration off a while. The stranger boy, too, was wondering vaguely at the fierce arraignment he had heard. The stranger girl was curiously haunted by memories of the queer little mountaineer, while Mavis now had a new awe of her cousin that was but another rod with which he could go on ruling her. Jason's mother was standing in the door when he walked through the yard. She went back into the cabin when she saw him coming and met him at the door with a switch in her hand. Very coolly the lad caught it from her, broke it in two, threw it away, and picking up a piggin, went out without a word to milk, leaving her aghast and outdone. When he came back, he asked like a man if supper was ready, and as to a man, she answered. For an hour, he pottered around the barn, and for a long time, he sat on the porch under the stars. And as always, at that hour, the same scene obsessed his memory, when the last glance of his father's eye and the last words of his father's tongue went not to his wife, but to the white-faced little son across the foot of the deathbed. "You'll get him for me someday." "I'll get him, Pap." Those were the words that passed, and in them was neither the asking nor the giving of a promise, but a simple statement, and a simple acceptance of a simple trust in the Father passed with a grim smile of content. Like every home, the boy believed that a Honeycutt was the assassin, and in the solemn little fellow one purpose hitherto had been supreme: to discover the man and avenge the deed, and though young as he was yet too cunning to let the fact be known. There was no male of the name old enough to pull the trigger, not even his mother's brother. Babe, who did not fall under the ban of the boy's deathless hate, and suspicion. Wait a minute, let me try that again. Like every Han, the boy believed that a Honeycutt was the assassin, and in the solemn little fellow one purpose hitherto had been supreme: to discover the man and avenge the deed. And though young as he was yet too cunning to let the fact be known. There was no male of the name old enough to pull the trigger, not even his mother's brother, Babe, who did not fall under the ban of the boy's deathless hate and suspicion. And always his mother, though herself a Honeycutt, had steadily fed his purpose, but for a long while now she had kept disloyally still, and the boy had bitterly learned the reason. It was bedtime now, and little Jason rose and went within. As he climbed the steps leading to his loft, he spoke at last, nodding his head toward the cabin over the spur. "I reckon I know what you two are up to, and furthermore, you are aiming to sell this land. I can't keep you from doing it, I reckon, but I do ask you not to sell without letting me know. I know something about it that nobody else knows, and if you don't tell me..." He shook his head slowly, and the mother looked at her boy as though she were dazed by some spell. "I'll tell you, Jaycee," she said. End of chapter 4.